You'll hear it. So I ask everyone, please leave yourself on mute for the duration of the presentation. There will be a section for Q&A about the last 15 minutes. So if you have a question, you can hang on to it and ask at the end, or you can throw it in the chat box and we will circle back to that at the end. You can leave your cameras on. I love seeing everyone's faces, but you can also have them off. That's totally up to you. For the duration of Scott speaking, it will just be on him and his presentation, but I'm always happy to see everyone's faces. So thanks again for being here. Again, any questions, put them in the chat box. You could message them to me or hang on to them until the end for Scott. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Scott Koloms. He's the founder and CEO of Canopy KY, and he will tell you all about what that is. So take it away, Scott.
Oh, thank you, Julia. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everybody this evening. It is lovely outside. Oh, let me turn that off before we just get dinged up all night. Okay. So I thought maybe the first thing I would do for you is show you a video that is sort of a highlight video of the work that Canopy is doing. So bear with me. I'm going to give this the best shot. My crew set me up to make this really easy, and let me see if I can manage to botch it up here. So give me 1 second, and let me put all this together. All right, there's that part. Okay. We did a walkthrough of this earlier today. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see a video?
Looks good, Scott. Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, and give me the thumbs up when I hit play to let me know someone that you can hear what's playing. So, can you?
I cannot hear it.
Okay. This worked earlier.
I have learned that someone said you have to also share the audio. I don't know if that's the case now.
My goodness, that wasn't needed earlier. Let me see. Share sound. Huh. All right, how about now?
There you go. Nice.
There's some things about Kentucky that you just don't get unless you live here. The shape of the land, the hills and hollers. Our rural traditions mix in with our fast-growing cities. It's a state full of hardworking people. It's a state with a lot of pride and a lot of potential. We have some problems too.
New data from the Census Bureau shows Eastern Kentucky's still struggling with poverty.
Health researchers say 106 rural
Our people need help and a fair chance.
Hazardous chemicals left over from coal-fired power plants are leaching into groundwater across Kentucky.
The 2016 study found that Louisville was warming.
Our environment needs our attention.
A Brookings Institution report shows about 1/4 of all jobs.
And we're losing our brightest young minds to other states with more opportunity. These are sticky problems, and while our government and community organizations are working hard, there's so much more to be done. Our state needs a new tool in the toolbox.
Canopy is an exciting new nonprofit organization working to make Kentucky first in the good business movement. We've created the Canopy Certified program, which has two intentions. We're going to help guide companies to incorporate a social and environmental mission into their business model, and we're going to recognize those companies that are doing it really well.
Canopy supports businesses in 4 different ways.
First, we educate, from business owners to their employees to the consumer. The Canopy Traveling Roadshow travels across the state, sharing ideas in good business. Our workshops, seminars, and live events are all informed by the Canopy curriculum.
Then we certify. Our Canopy Certified program is designed to meet Kentucky companies where they are and guide them through a process of greater impact through 4 levels of certification.
Then we connect businesses, nonprofits, individuals to create a network of impact-driven Kentuckians working collectively to create positive change.
And finally, we're going to grow. The Canopy Certified program is going to attract and retain the best talent and businesses to Kentucky, putting us on the leading edge of the good business movement.
Being an entrepreneur is so isolating. It's so isolating. I wish I had more community, more people next to me talking about what their problems were, what they needed, or a place like Canopy that was like, okay, you've got 5,000 ideas, well, let's make sure that you're doing good for the world and humanity and for Kentucky as you're doing it.
I read a few interesting books in the early days, but really we've made Heine Brothers Coffee up as we've gone. It would have been interesting to have a round table where a like-minded group of people could have been getting together regularly to share best practices or war stories or fears or hopes and dreams.
What I see as good business now and going forward is what can you add to the lives of others. A good company going forward is going to have good people. Talent. Talent is the key to the future. And I think that the kinds of people that you want to work for you, they're going to be looking for that.
We know that Kentucky businesses care about their communities and their environment. And we believe that, given the opportunity, those businesses can have a positive impact on our state's future. Kentucky knows how to win. We know what it feels like to come in first. Let's make Kentucky first in something else. Canopy, making Kentucky first in good business.
Right. So now I have to figure out how to get this back. Now I've got to switch over to my presentation. So you'll have to give me a second here. My PowerPoint. Okay, so I stopped sharing. I have to get to another link here. Everybody, please be patient with me. This is not my strength. Here we go.
We are all very much still learning in this
Right.
technological world.
Yeah. It's taken me to a D- level. So, yeah. Okay, can everybody see this, my screen? All right.
Yep.
Okay, so the presenter name is Scott Koloms. So just going to do a brief presentation on the work of Canopy and give you guys a little bit of a sense of what we're about and what we're doing and how it relates to your interests specifically. We're a nonprofit, and really what we're trying to do is grow Kentucky businesses to positively impact people, our planet, and our future. And what that really means is, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of maybe what's called the good business movement. Maybe you've heard of things called triple bottom line businesses, mission-driven businesses, public benefit corporations, all different words for essentially the same thing. And that's a group of for-profit businesses that really believe in a movement towards redefining capitalism. And that is sort of redefining the idea of what constitutes success in a for-profit business. There's the sort of antiquated version, the Milton Friedman version, that a for-profit company exists to do one thing, and that's to maximize profits. And the idea being that there needs to be an evolution, and that's an antiquated idea, and that businesses need to be the driver we need to see in environmental and social change, that businesses need to take on that task. And there is a movement around this, a global movement to sort of redefine capitalism and to incorporate social and environmental good into businesses. And, from an environmental standpoint, the first step is to do no harm, examine what you're doing and try to do no harm. And then the second phase is to leave your area in a better place than before. And that is to have a positive impact on the environment, your neighborhoods, and your communities. So our vision is really to make Kentucky the best state for this type of doing business. And that's what Canopy is trying to do. We're trying to get Kentucky to be known as a hotbed, as a fertile playground for social and environmental entrepreneurs. Sense of our core values and what we believe in, and this really informs the work that we do. Impact driven. We believe that businesses need to take on a responsibility to have impact in our communities and on our environment and on people, and to measure those impacts the same way you measure operational efficiencies and the same way you measure profitability. So the idea of coupling impact with the traditional business metrics of efficiency and profitability. Caring, the idea, fundamental core value in this is the idea that we care for one another, and that, you know, so on an interpersonal level, think of redefining the way we do exchange. So not to maybe go a little bit beyond the art of the deal. I won't get into politics too much, to where the idea is to maximize in the idea of exchange. One person needs to beat the other, needs to maximize what they can get, sort of redefine the idea of exchange to where there can be an equitable exchange, and that stakeholders that aren't involved in the immediate exchange can also be positively affected. So thinking about people that aren't at the table, other stakeholders, and even stakeholders that don't even have a voice yet, future generations, our planet. So caring, inclusive, we believe in an inclusive economy. We believe that it is better for business for there to be inclusion across all spectrums, collaborative and accountability and authentic, accountable and authentic. So gives you a sense of where we're coming from. All of this informs the work that we do. Our work primarily falls into three pillars. We educate, we certify, and we connect. So beginning with education, we have what we call the Canopy Traveling Roadshow. And what we do is we travel the state speaking with different audiences, from students to business owners to community leaders to government entities. And we talk about the idea of the good business movement and what that is, and how that's showing up both in terms of consumer spending right now. The buy local movement isn't limited to Louisville, it's across the country. Consumers are starting to think about where they spend their money and whom they spend their money with, and thinking about how companies are behaving. And we travel the state teaching, and we also share best practices of companies in the state that are doing well at this, that are being good environmental stewards, that are taking care of people and neighborhoods and communities, and we share the stories and how they're doing that. The second thing that we do is we certify. We have the Canopy Certified platform, and really it's as much of a guide as it is a certification program. And it was designed with the concept of sort of taking the sinners into the church concept, meaning we take companies where they are and we take them through a series of minimum requirements. And the idea is once they get that initial certification, which is the base level requirements, and which focuses on 4 areas, that is leadership, people and culture, governance, and external impact. And once they meet the minimum requirements, every year subsequently for their renewal, they have to continuously improve. And we have 130 plus inquiry points that they can choose from. And each year they will improve their score based on the answers to that. And that is the Canopy certification process. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that here in a minute. And the last piece is the connect part, and that is creating a network. We want to serve as a hub for social and environmental entrepreneurs, conscious consumers across the state. And we will do that through an online platform, but that really is phase 3 for Canopy. Our work right now is really stuck in, I shouldn't say stuck, but really is grounded in phase 1 and 2, which is educate and certify. Canopy certified companies are going to be companies that incorporate social and environmental good into their business model, and also recognize along the way that they need to treat their own people well, that they need to treat their own people fairly, that they operationalize their good. In other words, they crystallize these intentions in processes and procedures and in corporate governance, and that they hold leadership accountable to motivating and leading their folks in this direction. And there's the Canopy certified symbol. And the Canopy Certified Company provides verification, documentation of its continuous efforts to treat people and the environment well, lead with integrity, and positively impact the communities in which they serve. Distance there, and then you can read here on your own. I always feel weird just reading slides to people, but this gives you another sense of what a Canopy Certified Company will look like. And finally, this is a little bit of a breakdown of the Canopy certification process. Really excited about this. This is 2 years in the making, and we'll be launching this fall. We do have the online platform already created. It needs some tweaking. We're working with a local software development firm to get that finalized here in the next 30 to 60 days. But this gives you an overview of what the certification process looks like. We have an initial application where we get what you might call the traditional business metrics from a business. Things like how many full-time employees do you have? What is your revenue? What was your percentage profit in the previous 3 years? What's your turnover rate? Those sorts of data points. And we also ask a series of self-reporting questions. So these are questions that are important to our vetting. So some examples would be, are you involved in pornography? Are you, do you utilize underage employees? Do you utilize forced prison labor? Do you, are you in an industry? Are you in the coal industry? Things like this that we ask about to see where companies are. And then once your application is approved, you enter what's year one, which is a series of minimum requirements. You have 1 year to complete it, and it's 22 inquiry points that are broken up into those 4 tracks I mentioned earlier: external impact, leadership, people and culture, and governance. And once you answer those and complete an employee engagement survey, which is required each year, you become Canopy certified. Thereafter, each year, you work on continuously improving. And we have a series of 120 inquiry points that you can choose. And the idea being you have to hit a certain baseline points at that point and then improve by 10% each year. So the idea is not that you hit a lofty goal. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with B Corp certification. And maybe we can talk about that in the Q&A a little bit if you guys want to know a little bit more about that. But there's the concepts of public benefit corporations, which is an actual legal status. My for-profit business is a public benefit corporation and a B Corp. B Corp is a certification that is very difficult to attain. My company did it, and it took us a full year to accomplish. It's developed by a nonprofit called B Labs. And you have to earn 80 points minimum, which doesn't sound like much out of 200, but it's incredibly difficult. And part of the reason that I created Canopy and the Canopy certification was, well, to give you an example, there's only 7 B Corps in the state of Kentucky after 16 years of it being around. Currently, we as Canopy, we have 41 companies committed to entering our platform when it comes up live and is up and running. And the companies that we have interested run the spectrum. So all the way up to a publicly traded company with App Harvest to small startups. So just to give you an idea of that, the strategy I think is sound, what we worked on, and that is, taking this movement and localizing it to the state level to try to gain traction that way. Whereas B Corp is trying to do a global movement, which, well, in and of itself is extremely important. We have just a different strategy. So in addition to those electives and that continuous improvement, we also identified some themes that were, here's the tracks for you. I've said it a couple of times: external impact, culture, governance, leadership. But we identified some themes and we kind of gamified it a little bit. And we noticed that within those inquiry points within the tracks, there were certain themes that came up. So we created a merit badge system to where if you score a certain percentage of points eligible to the inquiry points that relate to these topics, you get a merit badge. So you can see we have DE&I champion, environmental hero, caring employer, mission-minded, social hero, transparent leadership, Kentucky advocate, health and safety. So here is some information. If you are interested in learning more about us and what we do, if you know how to deal with one of those things, you can do what you do with it. And yeah, so we happy to connect with you and let you know about our events, sign you up for our newsletter and those sorts of items. So that's Canopy in general. And let me get out of here so we can get back to seeing each other. Okay, so that is the work of Canopy. And what I thought I'd do here in the last few minutes of my presentation is give you guys a little bit of an idea exactly of how the environmental inquiry points show up. So, you know, what is it exactly we're asking companies to do from an environmental perspective? So to give you an idea, early on in the process, in the initial certification in the first year, every company has to pick or choose an environmental or social mission. Now, if they don't want to go with a mission, because a true mission is really embedded in every part of your company, you can go to an environmental or social commitment statement. And what you do is we've come up with social impact categories and environmental impact categories. And for our interest here, I'll just kind of highlight on those environmental impact categories, but I'll let you know that where we got these is they were kind of hijacked from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But then in addition to that, we also incorporate some Kentucky specific categories because we identify, for example, one of our social impact categories is opioid addiction and recovery, trying to really get these into Kentucky specific needs and concerns. But around environmental, the categories are waste reduction, water conservation and quality, energy conservation, air quality, carbon emissions, and biodiversity. So what a company does is they choose an area of focus or they embed that into their mission. And that is part of the initial requirements is for them to choose this and to briefly describe an initiative or program that you're doing around that selected topic. So in other words, if I choose that water conservation is my area of focus, then I move into describing a program, exactly what it is I'm doing to positively affect that. So early on, it's not necessarily, we're not looking at outcomes, we're not looking at really data gathering. We're simply asking you to identify an area to focus on and then tell us sort of what you're doing around that. As you move through the program over time, the idea is that you get more sophisticated. And to give you a general trajectory, how that sort of works, begin by identifying your mission, your area of focus, create programming, then you begin to measure, implement your programming, and you begin to measure the outcomes of your programming. Next, you move into goal setting. And then finally, how are you embedding that within your organization? So in other words, when you start to look at other sort of inquiry points, it's like, how are your leaders incentivized around your environmental mission? How do you share your environmental mission data, outcomes and data? Who do you share it with? Do you share it externally? Do you share it to the public? Do you share it internally? You know, do you share it through newsletters? How do you do that? Do you incentivize your employees about it? Are your employees evaluated based on their participation in environmental or social initiatives? So really, you can see the inquiry points are really trying to move companies on a trajectory of further embedding, and I like to use the phrase, really incorporating the social or environmental mission into the DNA of their business. So oftentimes when I talk about this concept, and I am operating on a lot of assumptions here, I'm really sorry. I'm kind of like talking like you guys know what B Corps and PBCs and all that stuff, and maybe some of you do. But the idea so a useful thing to think about is sort of think of a spectrum, a line, and on maybe the far left of the line, you have a traditional corporate giving program, a CSR, to where you actually have maybe a corporation that actually maybe has a separate foundation or a separate entity to where, you know, the good that they're doing is executed through that. And then maybe you think on the other side of the spectrum, you have what I call a true social or environmental enterprise. And that's where if you took out that environmental initiative or that social initiative, that entire business would collapse. And then sort of the idea of the Canopy certification is to move companies along that trajectory more towards that right-hand side over time. Not asking everybody to get to a fully blown social or environmental enterprise, but to definitely move along that trajectory. So that gives you a general sense of what we're asking about in terms of environmental You know, and I'll just give you a couple of sample inquiry points. Like, in the past 12 months, did your company protect, maintain, or restore public green spaces or parks in any of the following ways? 1, cleanups, tree planting, funding services, other program. To give you an idea, and which of the following processes or policies include your social or your environmental mission, your onboarding process, your hiring process, your training, your reviews. So really digging in deep and seeing how much they've embedded this environmental mission into their business. And also we get into things like, you know, if an organization directly controls land, we ask how many acres of it's sustainably managed, how many of it's cultivated, how many acres are treated with pesticides. And we ask them to please upload their land management and treatment program. We look at greenhouse gas emissions, carbon offset credits if they have those. So just to give you a general sense, I'm not going to go through all of these with you, but just to give you a general sense of how we're digging in with these companies and really trying to verify that they're doing what they say they're going to do. So to take a step back, you know, the premise is this. I'm a Kentuckian. I love Kentucky. I recognize that we sure do come in last in a lot of things that I'd like to fix. And this isn't a magic bullet, but the thinking is that if we could become known as one of the best states for socially conscious and environmentally conscious entrepreneurs, that could be a really unique tool in our toolbox to attract those sorts of companies. And then, of course, the other important piece of data is that younger generations younger than I am, are moving in this direction. They want to work for companies that have some sort of purpose, that are contributing in some positive way to the world. They are also willing to spend a little bit more money because they want to buy from companies that are acting in this way and doing these sorts of things. And the wind is blowing in this direction. In fact, a number of different fund managers, Blackstone, largest, BlackRock, the largest managed fund in America. Their CEO has said on numerous occasions recently that, you know, if you're not thinking this way as a for-profit business and you're not thinking about how to positively impact, you're going to be a dinosaur in 10 years. So the movement is happening right now. The idea being, well, what if we could put Kentucky on the front end, really be a leader in this? And one of the reasons the certification is so important, because eventually like to move to a space where there are benefits that are offered to companies operating this way. So what if we could incentivize, whether it's around procurement, whether it's around taxes, or something, that in turn would attract other businesses to where we could get synergy and we could get the impact of these businesses on our social and environmental problems in addition to the economic impact. You know, I always I dream about, you know, what if we had 20 companies in Eastern Kentucky working on opioid addiction and recovery? What if we had 10 businesses in the west end of Louisville that committed to focusing on reduction of violence for 2 years? I can't help but think that would have an incredible impact and a sustainable impact on our community. So that's our work, and I will open it up for questions.
Loved that. Thank you, Scott. It was really cool getting to learn about Canopy. And we had a lot of questions coming through the chat box. So let me just read you a few.
Okay.
Starting with Stacy. She said, what about employee transportation benefits for rideshare, van pool, transit, carpool, bike, walk, telework?
Yeah, so the process, Stacy, that's a great question. So the process how we came up with our categories is interesting to know. So what we did is we did a real survey of the literature to see what all these companies that are triple bottom line, mission driven, public benefit, what are they doing? That's how we came up with, you know, the stuff seemed to land in leadership, in people and culture, in governance, and an external impact. But then what we did, the next step, is we went and talked to business owners and different companies all over the country. And we asked them, so what are you doing to positively affect culture? What are you doing to positively affect people? And so we began to get a series of what you might call best practices, right? And that's how our inquiry points really came about, the questions that we asked. So I will tell you that transportation is one of our impact categories that's Kentucky specific. So you can choose transportation. But to give you, and yes, within inquiry points, there's a number of spaces where we ask, like, what benefits do you provide your employee? And like transportation is a possible answer to earn points. I also think it shows up in, we ask a lot of questions around like civic, how do you engage, encourage employees to engage civically? And one of the things that we say is, do you provide rides to go vote or things like that? But what I'll do is I'll tell you, one of the cool things that I neglected to mention about the certification is that it also includes curriculum. We already have 15 curriculum developed. They're online classes, like around DE&I, around ethical leadership, around Kentucky specific issues. And we also are getting a best practices library. We've got an intern who's at Vanderbilt right now who starts this Friday, and she's developed a method for collecting these best practices in a consistent way, and they're going to be sorted by those impact categories. So if you're a company and you want to, I want to deal in food access, you're going to be able to go into food access and see these cool things that all these companies are doing. But I have to give you an example. I think it's awesome that you brought that up. My company, Facilities Management Services, has had a rideshare program going on for 3 years now. We have over 60 employees now that we provide. We run basically a bus system. We actually just hired somebody who's going to do nothing but dispatch for us. We have 4 vans that take people to and from work. And that's really been nice because we kind of doubled it up in part of our social mission, where we engaged with community partners, especially in the refugee community, to where we're providing them with rides to and from work on a nightly basis. And yeah, definitely transportation is, that's been a dream of ours. And I'll tell you a funny story, how that one came about. I was driving on the highway one day, and I had my son, who's almost 16 now, but at the time, I think he was 12. We were driving in the car, and I take a work call, and it's a stressed out work call. I'm irritated, and I get off the phone, and he's like, "Dad, what's going on? What's up?" And I was like, it's just work, typical dad answer. And he's like, "Well, no, talk to me about it. I want to hear about it." I'm like, "Well, we're having a really hard time. We got this piece of business that's way out the east end of Louisville. It's way out Old Henry, and we can't find anybody to work. And it's hard to find that. And we have no access of people can't get out there, or, yada, yada." And he goes, "Well, Dad, why don't you just pick them up and take them to work?" And I was like, well, I hadn't really thought about that. So then within a month, I'd gone to TARC. And at the time, Barry was the CEO of TARC. And I told him my plan, and we wrote up a proposal, and they gave us a van to do this. And it ended up being a really important initiative. Where we took that to the next level was with a nonprofit called Choose Well. And what we did with them is, these were moms who were in addiction, in recovery, and had children 3 years or younger. And we coupled a partnership with them. We gave them transportation to the job. We gave them a living wage, and they went to clean. And it was a cohort of 6 women. And for the first 6 months of this project, not one shift was missed and not one complaint. Never happens in the janitorial service. Never, ever, ever, ever. And it was just an idea. This is because, remember, what we're talking about is this idea of, by doing good, you can have a viable business. It's not, it's that idea of doing both. So I totally went off on a tangent on you there, Stacy, but yes, transportation is a big part of what we're doing. Sorry about that.
I loved that. You have a smart son.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we have another question from Justin. Does Canopy certification include a maximum income gap between a company's highest and lowest paid employees?
Yes, so one of our inquiry points is, what is the ratio of your lowest employee to your highest employee? And that does not disqualify you, but it's part of the point system. So in other words, if you are at a 50 times plus, you're not going to get any points. And I don't remember exactly what that is. I'm pretty sure 50 times plus, you don't get any points. I'm 100% confident, but I can't remember exactly what they are. I think it's like 0 to 10 times you get some certain, or 0 to 5, you get a certain amount of points. And then it's 6 to 10. I can't remember exactly what those are, but that is absolutely incorporated into the certification. It is not a disqualifier though.
Awesome. Thanks for that. From Ellen, how did this begin? I love a good origin story. And how are you funded?
Well, at the end of this, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna ask anybody for money, just joking. So the origin story is really about my the janitorial service. So in my previous life, I was in academia and I was working on a PhD, and my dad had bought a little business in Shelbyville, a janitorial business in '99, and he passed away unexpectedly 18 months after he bought the business. I dropped out of my doctoral program and took over the business. And the story of that is a whole different talk, but really, it was really a story of how to, I was, very much always about social justice. I wanted to be a writer and never thought I was going to be a businessman in a million years. And it was really a journey of how do I marry sort of my values with my company, and how can, my company come to my values as well. So it's how did I do that over time? And early on, it was very much in an intuitive space of believing. My business model was, I think if I'm nice to people and care about them, we'll probably succeed. Not the most sophisticated, but really it is a journey of how that became more and more sophisticated over time. So what happened is, without giving you the long version, is we became a B Corp. And once we became a certified B Corp, State Representative Jerry Miller sought me out because he wanted to get public benefit corporation legislation passed. It had failed twice previously. You want to hear some funny stories about that. The reason that it failed twice previously was the coal industry, because they heard that Patagonia was a B Corp, and they thought that by allowing this sort of legislation, it would be really bad. So I don't want to go into that too much. But so anyway, Jerry sought me out as a blue collar Shelbyville business to show that we're not these scary companies, right? That we're legitimate companies that believe in this stuff. And we ended up getting the PBC legislation passed. But while I was sort of touring the state with him to lobby for this, I met so many really cool business owners, and this, that have big hearts and that were in what I call this intuitive space of doing good. It's the barbershop in Somerset that gives free haircuts to single moms for their kids before school starts. I can name all different sorts of companies that were doing really cool stuff. And I thought to myself, man, what if we could harness this? What if we could sort of teach these businesses how to focus those energies? And not only that, but how to do that secret sauce of choosing an interest, a social or environmental good you're interested in, but also making sure that the way that you're executing that mission, that you're allowing your business to thrive, that you're allowing your business to be financially viable. Now, I throw out a dirty word when I do talks, and that is fair profit. So this way of doing business also has to incorporate the concept of fair profit, and it's also a longer game. Doing business like this, you don't do that. It's more like this. You're going to get a slow, steady gain, but it's less stressful, and it's wonderful actually. So Jerry met all those people, and I thought to myself, man, what if we could harness the energy of these folks across the state? I knew the global movement was happening. I knew the national movement was happening. I was like, what if we could make Kentucky like the best at this? What if this became our jam? What if we became known as the best place for social? We've got the social problems for sure. We've got the environmental problems for sure. Well, why can't we harness this? And that was the initial thought in the coffee shop.
And how are you funded?
Through I was trying to think of something witty. Sorry, it didn't happen. So I primarily, we're funded from a number of different sources. We get grants through the city of Louisville. We have 3 primary funders. Matt Thornton has donated in excess of $100,000. We have Ted Nixon, who is the CEO founder of DDW, who is also going to be a Canopy certified company. He's also a major donor. Brooke Smith is also a major donor. We did a $50,000 crowdfunding campaign. We just got, for the first time, we got into a local foundation. The Gaines Foundation has given us money this year. We have a whole lot of mid-level donors and lower level donors that support us. I'm probably leaving something out, but so our 4 buckets of funding right now are corporate donations, individual donors, grants, and sort of crowdfunding. That's kind of individual donors, but that's primarily how we do this. Now, as the certification rolls out, our model is within 3 years to get 50% of our funding through the certification fees.
Very cool. Denise, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, has a question. Has there been a trial run for Canopy in Kentucky?
No, not in terms of the certification specifically, Denise. I don't see her on here. I'm going to assume that, and no, not yet. As close as we've gotten to that is we had 4 or 5 alpha companies in the latter part of last year go through a very early section of the certification online, but as of yet, no. Now we've been out doing the educational piece across the state. We've, our numbers, we've had I think 200 plus events, educational moments, and tens of thousands of people educated. That stuff's already been happening, but certification, not quite there yet.
Another one from Ellen. Who are some Canopy certified companies?
Well, not there yet, but of the 41, some companies that you might hear of that are ready to rock and roll as soon as we launch this platform. So App Harvest being a big one that I'm sure you all are familiar with. DDW, Facilities Management Services, which is my company. I cannot believe that I am totally blanking here. There's 41 of them. And I told him not to put that slide on here. We have a slide of all 41. I was like, no, they probably won't be too interested in that. And now I will think of them as we continue this conversation. I promise you. There's a lot of Heine Brothers. There's a lot of them you've heard of. I'll think of them as we talk.
As they come to you, just blurb them out.
Just blurb them out. I will.
Tiffany has a question for you. Are you working with local chambers or commerce to identify businesses?
Yes. So we have a reciprocal partnership with GLI. We actually have a GLI person on our board in sort of an honorary position. So we work with them. I'm speaking with in Northern Kentucky Chamber very soon. We have the answer is yes, but we're always interested in developing relationships with other chambers. But right now, Kentucky Chamber, Louisville, Northern Kentucky, Chuck Sexton, who's with Kentucky One, that's sort of in Eastern Kentucky. Our board chair do you guys know who Jeff Marietta is? So Jeff runs, you may have heard about the Harlan County Brewing Company that recently is a startup, like Gil Holland and him in Eastern Kentucky. But that's pretty cool. But what I think makes Jeff really cool is that he runs an incubator in Appalachia, for Appalachia startups, and has a Harvard MBA. He's a genius. His whole deal is about cultivating entrepreneurialism in Appalachia. But he connected us with like Harlan County Chamber in a number of different places. So yes, we're certainly working with the chambers to find like-minded companies.
A question from Carrie, and this is kind of a 2-part question. What size companies are the sweet spot for Canopy certification? And is there an entity that is too small, like a sole proprietor?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question that we have noodled on and turned over and turned upside down. I'll have a better answer for you in about 4 months to 5 months. But yeah, I'd like to think that we're going to be able to support the small businesses as well. And when I say small, I mean really small, 5 employees or less. They're the ones that I'm worried about, frankly, because they don't have the resources to hey, I need somebody to focus on this. I need somebody to do all that. They don't have that. They're that entrepreneur that's now. Here's what's cool. God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think if I say it, I put it out in the universe, so it's going to happen. It pretty much is going to happen. So I'm in the final stages of wrapping up a deal with University of Louisville to where we're actually have an option on the certification to where you can say, do you want to utilize a University of Louisville student to be your Canopy liaison? And there's a grant through U of L that is going to pay 75% of their pay. So the company can say, we'll pay them $7 an hour, and they'll actually get 21. and it's a commitment that this person will work with that company to help them get their certification 20 hours a week for 12 weeks. So what I'm hoping is that we're able to offer scholarships for that for small businesses that are going to need that help. That's kind of a dream. And what you're really hearing is me thinking out loud, addressing the issue that I think you're trying to hit on there. And that is, it's going to be harder for really small companies because it does require you to create, you're probably going to have to create policies that you don't have, right? We're going to ask you things like, do you have a formalized evaluation system for all of your employees, and what does that look like? You have to upload that, show that to, do you have a formalized communication system? Those sorts of things. And it's a lot of work when somebody's in startup to like make that happen. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but it is designed to be useful to companies of all sizes.
That's pretty cool. And fingers crossed for that U of L scholarship situation to work out. That would be sweet.
Yeah, it would. It's going to happen.
We'll manifest it.
Yep.
Okay, we got two more questions. And the first one is actually from me. You perked my ears when you started talking about inclusive economy. And I'm wondering what that looks like to you.
Who asked that?
Me from the LSD, Julia.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I mean, that's just a cool question. It's a great conversation. So what does an inclusive economy looks like? So, I mean, on a simplistic level, I'm going to steal some knowledge from someone else. So, think of the idea around, what is the example this guy used? He said, if you were dropped in the middle of, a remote village in the Amazon, what good would $2 million give you? Absolutely nothing, right? That's worth nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were able to bring clean water, that would have extreme value, right? So the idea is that, capitalism, we've one of the problems with capitalism we have, and I'm going to get to your answer, trust me, it's just a little bit of a winded way. One of the problems I have, and I am windy. So one of the problems that we have is that we've lost sight, we've become misguided around what makes capitalism great. What makes capitalism great is that it solves human problems. That's what makes it great. And what we've done is we put an unequal amount of weight into the accumulation of wealth as the ultimate value of capitalism. Solving human problems is really what it's all about. So the idea is if you can agree with me at that level, that capitalism has a value. I'm a capitalist, but I believe that capitalism needs to evolve. 100%. It is antiquated. The idea of maximizing profits, our trajectory to where more and more wealth is being accumulated by fewer and fewer people, that isn't sustainable. History tells us what happens. If that continues, we know what happens, and it's not good for business, right? So we have to think about, that sort of thing. So the idea is that all of these amazing things we've done within this construct of capitalism, all these amazing ideas came from so many different people. And my belief is that the more people we have participating in that, the more people that have the opportunity to act within that structure, to give their ideas, to participate in that structure, the better it's going to be for all of us. And so an inclusive economy means giving access, not just in terms of, certainly there's the part of allowing people to, participate in the economy by spending, but also allowing people to participate by creating environments where they can be the entrepreneurs, where they can be the idea creators, that they can be the dreamers of the dreams and make that happen. So the inclusive economy is that concept of, ships all rising together, certainly, but also creating a fertile playground, because what I believe is the true value of capitalism is allowing great ideas to flourish. And those great ideas don't need to just come from a white guy, a rich guy, a poor guy, a woman, a man. It can come from anybody. And that's what I believe is important.
I love that. And this is the first time I'm hearing that term. So I'm going to do some more digging on that, because I'm sure there's more ideas like this floating around, but I love that. And I know, gosh, it's already 6:55. This has flown, but one more question for you. And what is your idea of good business versus bad business?
On a most simple level, bad business is motivated simply around the accumulation of wealth. That the motive behind every decision is, how do I get more out of this organization? And you know, all the different, so that's the disease. And the symptoms are treating people poorly, treating the environment poorly, right? All the things that come along with that. That's bad business. What is good business? Good business is recognizing that as a for-profit entity, we have a responsibility to be the driver behind the changes we need to see in the world. That we cannot continuously look to nonprofits and government for the change that we want to see, that we owe that to our communities and our country to do that, and that we need to drive that. So for me, good business is somebody that recognizes that responsibility, somebody that recognizes all stakeholders as they go about doing their business. That's their people, that's their vendors, that's their neighborhoods, that's future generations, that's the planet, you know, that is taking all of that into account as they make decisions and work towards making a fair profit.
Love that. Great answer. We can all work towards being a better business.
No.
And let's see, I'm just checking the chat box. Got lots of messages thanking you. It seems like you've really excited some people. Nick wanted to say hi, said you guys have briefly met, so I'll let you check out the chat box. Cool. And let's see, Julie Donna just said, I haven't read this, so I'm reading it out loud as I read it. I have to say that Christy Jarbo, Julie, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
In Louisville Metro
Yes.
Economic Development is on Canopy KY Board of Directors. She's always talking about the great work of the organization. I'm really excited to see this idea and the inclusive economy take off in Kentucky. And I think we can all agree with that sentiment.
Oh yeah. If you know Christy, you know Christy. She's awesome. She's a firecracker, and we're so happy to have her on our board.
That's awesome. Well, it's 6:57. This has totally flown by for me. Scott, thank you so much for joining us and presenting. I am also really looking forward to see everything Canopy has in store for Kentucky. A quick wrap-up message. November 10th, mark your calendars. That is the Louisville Sustainability Summit hosted by the LSC. Early bird tickets are on sale now. I just popped that link in the chat box. Also mark your calendars. September 17th is Give for Good. That's a really great way to support the Louisville Sustainability Council and all the other great work that's being done in our community. Follow us on Facebook to stay up to date on all our events and resources. And all the good stuff like that. Thank you again, Scott. Everyone has really enjoyed this, and we look forward to connecting in the future. So thank you everybody for being here. Enjoy your evening, and we will see you at our next Green Drinks.
Thanks everybody. Take care.